Our former president and flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, John Dramani Mahama, has accused President Akufo-Addo of setting Ghana's democracy back 28 years by destroying and politicizing institutions. The opposition leader names the judiciary, military and audit service in the list of organizations which have been compromised by the presidency. Government has faced criticism from some quarters, especially the opposition party, for the perceived control of these institutions in their 3.5-year tenure. John Mahama and the NDC believe the only way to restore the dignity of these bodies is to vote the current administration out of office and send them back to the Jubilee House. Here are extracts of the former president's statement. And it reads, the tragedy of the Akufo-Addo administration is not only the colossal debt it has saddled Ghanaians with. It is not only the huge physical deficit he has created even before COVID-19. It is not only the hundreds of projects he has abandoned, causing taxpayers' money to go waste. It is not only his poor infrastructure record. This particular tragedy is in the destruction and politicization of our institutions, a judiciary that lacks impartiality, an oppressed parliament, a pliant electoral commission, an auditor general hounded out of office, a misused military, anti-corruption institutions in bondage, an intimidated media, a terrified moral society. These constitute the tragedy of the 4 years of Akufo-Addo's administration. He has set our democracy back 28 years. This is what makes it a patriotic duty for all patriotic Ghanaians to join hands to rescue our nation. I, John Dramani Mahama, will restore dignity and independence to our state institutions. I will depoliticize our democratic institutions and make them work effectively and independently for all Ghanaians. Ghanaians will respect the judiciary once again. Justice will be impartial, and Ghanaians will be able to express themselves freely once more without fear of harassment or death. So those were extracts of the former president's statement, and he's named it Tragedies of the Akufo-Addo Administration. Pius Enam Hajide is Deputy Information Minister, and he joins us via Zoom. Thank you very much for your time. We'll also be joined by Felix Kwachi Fosu. He's with the opposition National Democratic Congress. So let's start off with you, Mr. Hajide. The president has been accused of stagnating the country's democracy and drawing us back. What's your reaction to that?
Well, thank you very much, Arva. Good afternoon to you and to your viewers. I think that what is rather tragic is the attempt by the former president, Mr. Mahama, to resort to name-calling, running down of state institutions, and sometimes peddling of outright falsehoods in a bid to gain political traction and to win the votes of Ghanaians. We are guided by the admonition of His Excellency the President that these year's electioneering campaigns should be about the track record, the solid track record of competence and solid governance, which is reflecting on the ground. And we would move away from such baseless and groundless allegations as has been made by the former President, Mr. Mahama. And if I may take just a few examples. For instance, he speaks of the Auditor General, and I am scandalized that for somebody his stature to suggest that the mayor asking a public office holder to proceed on leave amounts to stagnating the democracy and drawing us back. It's greatly scandalizing to me, because under his watch as vice president, precedent was set and similar action was taken where a public officer, in fact, the Auditor General, was asked to proceed on leave. If it was unconstitutional at the time, or if it was constitutional at the time, then it is constitutional today. And for me, it is only a mark of high hypocrisy, double standard, and maybe desperation that today somebody will look upon an action which he, as vice president, indeed superintendent, today to be unconstitutional and describe it in those terms. Number two, the former president speaks about debts, and I am surprised because the revenue that is available to this government, including loans, the results of those revenues are clearly manifest for all to see. It is with those revenues that we are able to resolve DUMSO, for instance. We are able to restore allowances, for instance. We are able to implement free SHS, for instance. We are able to develop the truly unprecedented infrastructure across the length and breadth of this country, not infrastructure in Accra and a few selected cities to gloat about, but infrastructure that is spread across the entire length and breadth of this country. That is the same revenue that is helping us to be able to implement the planting for food and jobs, for instance. And I can go on and on.
Right.
It is with the same revenue that we are able to manage and navigate our way around COVID-19 and the several social interventions that this government is rolling out. So when he speaks of the debts, I invite him to avert his minds to the results that are clearly manifest on the ground and to move away from name-calling, resorting to the peddling of falsehood, like he did a few days ago when he insisted and suggested that His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo has had 8 years in government, whilst everybody knows that this government is barely 3.5 years in government. Mr. Mahama suggests to us that we have done 8 years. Indeed, we have done just 3.5 years. We accept the invitation to compare even the 8 years that he had with the
very well, Mr. Hajide.
His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo has done.
Very well.
You will find out. Hello.
So let's talk about the Auditor General, because you also made mention of that. He references it as well, and he says that Mr. Domelevo was hounded out of office. In fact, it's a position that is backed by anti-corruption agencies. In fact, the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition issued a statement on that when that incident came up. The matter, as we know, is now in court. So how do you not agree with those who argue that indeed you hounded the Auditor General out of office?
Well, factually speaking, Mr. Domelevo is not out of office. He is still the Auditor General of Ghana. He's just on leave. Fact one. Fact two is that the president acted with due regard to relevant laws of this country, including the Labor Act and relevant sections of our constitution. Fact three is that there is precedent, and which precedent occurred during the tenure of Mr. Mahama when he was vice president. So is he accusing his own administration of engaging in an illegality and an unconstitutionality by asking the then Auditor General to also proceed on leave? I hold the view, and this government respects the view of every individual or institutions, but on this matter, we respectfully disagree with the view that some people, even the big day in civil society, may hold. And the fact that we have a listening government and there is precedence that the government can listen and do amend positions on other matters does not mean that the government is stopped from insisting on something if the government believes that on that particular matter, that is the position to take. So again, the attack on the judiciary is quite unfounded. The NDC itself, led by Mr. Mahama, has proceeded to the courts on several occasions to look for settlement of matters. It is that same institution that he resorts to, that he now denigrates and insults in this brazen partisan political manner. And I think that that is unbecoming of a former president and somebody who aspires to once again occupy the high office of president. I think it's unbecoming of Mr. Mahama to go on an attacking spree of state institutions this manner.
Thank you so much for your time. That's a Deputy Information Minister, Pius Hajide, there. And let me just put it out there that we had reached out to the NDC for some clarification on the former president's statement. As and when we get them, we will be bringing it in subsequent bulletins.